Hello everybody and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. I am back and it is live after last week's recording. It seemed a bit weird to be watching it back as a premiere instead of being live, but I am glad to be back live and it's great to see you in the chat already. Hello to you all and I hope you're doing well. It is Tuesday and again a different day to what we used to do things with, and that will be changing to Thursday next week just to confuse you even more so, but please bear with it, it'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so we've got a fantastic show lined up for you tonight. If the wonderful world of technology holds up, and I'm sure it will do because you know, we've been there before and I'm sure we'll get through it anyway, and I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. Just a heads up that in one day, just over a day, the first draw for the first ever WCCS Book Club Indie Author of the Month will take place, and that is a great feature. If you don't know about it, get your tickets today. There's just 53 tickets sold out of 300, and 300 is quite a lot. We didn't quite expect to sell that anyway. But there's just one day left, like I said, and it will. If you win that, you'll be featured on our website for the entire month. I'll buy and review your book on Amazon and Goodreads. And if you want to come on the show at the end of that month to talk about that book, you can do it in an interview. But also, you'll win a £99 writing course, award-winning writing course from the Novelry, a 12-month subscription to the Pro Writing Aid, which is incredible if you've never used that. And you will get your blurb critiqued by a publishing house, which is something, you know, not many people get to do. And we'll give you a great insight how to develop that in the right way as well. So you can find that on the website. Check it out. Definitely worth doing. So hello to you on the chat who's in. Hello Ross, hello to you, nice to see you, and we look forward to Friday's show, which is the absolutely incredible Brooklyn Book Festival. We are hosting a show, myself and Queer Indie QI group, and that will be fantastic too. Linda's there, hello, and Joanne, Sarah, hello to every one of you, thank you for tuning in. So without further ado, let's get on tonight's guest, because I'm very excited to talk about some of the things that's happened in this person's life before this book has been brought out. So let's talk about that. You will see in the bottom of the screen some information there. And tonight's guest has spent over 24 years traveling the globe, carrying out personal and youth development expeditions. That person has skippered an epic 52-day row around Britain that has been described by Sir Richard Branson as quite the most remarkable achievement carried out by any woman alive today. She carried out biological research missions and remote filming trips for the BBC. Today she is a motivational speaker, fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, and campaigner encouraging others to live adventurously, as we all should. And she's written a book exploring why adventure is essential to our well-being, from managing anxiety and overcoming fear to finding self-worth. That book is Adventure Revolution. She, in fact, has started her own Adventure Revolution, and that woman is Belinda Kirk. Hello, Belinda. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Great to see you. It's great, and thank you so much for asking me on today. I hope my internet holds out.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time out to come and join us. And as we just chatted pre-show, you are living kind of in the wilderness where internet may be a bit slow.
Yeah, I love living out here. It's Exmoor. We're quite remote corner of Exmoor National Park, but the problem is, yeah, communications aren't always great. There's no mobile signal, and the Wi-Fi's pretty awful. Yeah,
but you get to live in the wilderness.
Oh no, I wouldn't have it any other way. Maybe I just need to get really good satellite broadband one day.
Yeah, I'm sure some company can sort you out there. Some, you know, it's 2021, nearly 22. They got to sort that out, surely.
You think so? I don't know. Technology is my total kryptonite.
Anyway, regardless of the technology, it's fantastic to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, it's very exciting. The book's been out for about 6-7 weeks now, and yeah, I mean, it's a journey I've never been on. I've never written a book before, so it's great. Yeah, I don't know. It's everything. It's good. It's bad. It's hard. It's difficult. It's easy. I don't know. It's a roller coaster, isn't it?
We'll find, yeah, definitely. There's 3 parts to this show. The first part, we look into how you arrived at writing this book. We'll look into the second part of how that book came around, as in your style of writing it and how you found that process. And then we'll have some questions in from the audience. So in part 1, I'll play a little video and we'll get to find out exactly, although there's many stories along the road to this book, we'll find out some of those stories about how you managed to get into the world of writing. So, Belinda, let everybody know. I mean, your journey as an adventurer has been absolutely incredible. I've been checking out your website and some videos on YouTube of you, and some of the stories that you've told are mind blowing. So let's take it back and find out just when did, say, little Belinda get the excitement for adventure, and how did that come around for you actually doing that in your life?
I think. I mean, I'm going way back. I think it started when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. I was really lucky to have the first part of my childhood was on the Channel Islands, on Alderney, one of the Channel Islands, one of the smaller ones, and there's, I don't know, and it was also what 30 or maybe 40 years ago, and back then. There was a freedom that I don't know if we can give that to our kids nowadays. It's a bit harder, but also living on an island, there's a lot of freedom there. So the word feral was used a lot about me, which I don't know. I spoke to someone about it recently, like in the last few years, and they're like, "Oh dear, they won't look like that." And I was like, "No, it's great. I mean, surely that's exactly what I want to give my son, a feral upbringing." But yeah, I was free. I was free to like climb trees, build dens. I had a secret garden that I kind of found, and I would get muddy and dirty and come back in time for tea.
Yeah, I mean that kind of reminds me a little bit of my upbringing, but that was I suppose in the late 80s, 90s, and even then technology hasn't quite advanced as much as it has now. So obviously there's a massive distraction for our youth today. Find it comfortable to sit in and watch telly, computer games, or not go out because it's dark or raining. But kind of back when I was a kid, it was like when it gets dark, that's the time to come in and stop playing, if that made sense.
Exactly, you'd be out all day, wouldn't you? I think it was kind of normal 30, 40 years ago for kids just to be outside. I mean, the statistics tell us that as well. The area in which children play has shrunk 90% in the last 35 years.
Wow.
And if you think about that, that's all that authenticity, autonomy, all that excitement and freedom that you feel. It's all kind of, because we don't let kids outside of our sight, basically. So yeah, but I was really lucky. I mean, like so many of us back then, I was properly wild. At least for the early years, anyway. And I think that stayed with me. That is like embedded in me. And I think because I think everyone's adventurous, really. It's just you've got to have the opportunity to find it, and once you found it, you will always go back. You'll always keep looking for it.
Amazing. So, what was kind of the first step for you of stepping outside of the general upbringing, feral time of your life? When did it actually become something that was okay? This is a real event that's happening. I'm stepping into the big world. At what stage was that?
So, second part of my childhood was a bit more problematic for me. It was harder, and there was less outdoors and less adventure, or none really. Moved to central Bristol. I mean, I love Bristol; it's a brilliant city, but just didn't have for various reasons, like in the family, I didn't have the opportunity to go and do stuff. But then I found the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and that sort of rekindled that flame that was set, back in my early childhood. So when I was about 16, I went to the Brecon Beacons, and like four girls, me and 3 mates, like sort of city girls with like big backpacks, badly packed and way too heavy and not fitting well in like heavy rain in Brecon Beacons. I mean, should have hated it, but actually, well, I think some of them did, but I loved it. And I was like, this is awesome. And I felt a confidence that I hadn't felt, I don't think, since I was a kid. It was I think adventures, one reason adventure's so good is because it can build your confidence amazingly, because you're completely responsible for yourself. Even if you've got a guide or a tutor or someone helping you, you are still doing it yourself. So that gave me this confidence to kind of, I don't know, do all sorts of stuff. But it led me then to Africa. When I was 18, I went off traveling to Africa on my own. And eventually all those things just led me into more and more adventure, and then a career in adventure. And sort of about 13 years working in adventure television, and I don't know, probably 15, 16 years running international expeditions. And then the last 8 years doing more smaller adventures in Britain, and well, a whole bunch of things in the last 8 years, trying to make more impact.
It truly is amazing, all of the things you've achieved. And if anyone can, if you have the time to check out Belinda's website, it really is worth checking out. And there's so many things on there, and exceptional sort of jobs that you've taken on throughout other expeditions and things, a whole array of roles as well. So you really got your fingernails into the depth, the grittiness of this, and discovering different things, even as far as professional scuba diver is on your resume now.
Oh yeah, I worked when I was 23. I worked as a I worked as a diver. I learned. I was really lucky. I learned to dive when I was 18 in Africa. So I started diving right at the beginning of my adulthood, and I love diving. It's still probably my favorite thing. And I've been able to dive all around the world, because every time I've done it, I normally do jungles and deserts. So every time I do a shoot or an expedition or something, I would tack on a bit of diving at the end. But yeah, I did my diving qualifications and was taking people diving in the Red Sea.
Wow.
For about a year or year and a half.
So here's a question for you then. If you you've got diving, you've got jungle, desert, just those three, for example, and you had to take one away, which one would you take away?
Thing is, I can't think like that. Is that a pain not to answer? I just don't want to pick, because life is about living. It's about trying stuff and doing stuff. So I can't answer that, because I would never cut any of them out. And I think right now I'd love to go diving, because it's been so long, and it's something that, I don't know, I've done diving in Britain, and I'm spoiled. There is great diving in Britain, but
where's the best place in Britain? Because obviously the coast, for example, in South Wales where I am, some of it's murky, and then you go a certain distance and it's beautifully clear. Where's the best place in Britain for diving, do you think?
It kind of depends on conditions. Scarpa Flow is a place up in Scotland that I really want to dive that I haven't done. And there's a whole, I'm probably going to get my history wrong here, but there's sort of dozens of World War II wrecks that were scuttled there. It's an amazing dive site for wreck diving. And then you've got, if you're really, you've got seals off the Farne Islands, you've got leatherback turtles, but you have to be pretty in the know for that one. That's in Cardiff Bay. Seeing as you're in Wales, you have to talk about that one. I don't know. The Welsh coast is absolutely gorgeous. Probably around Anglesey and places, I would guess, would be nice and clean. And yeah. I don't know. There's lots of good places.
In the chat says it's my favourite place to dive as well. I did my dive master in the Red Sea, which is fantastic.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I did see on one of your YouTube videos, you talking about the expedition. What is it called? Sorry, I forgot the name of that now. Expedition Explorers Connect program that you do. And you talked about diving with seals. And I realised that I've never done any sort of diving. But that sounds absolutely incredible. Why is it that you feel the need to kind of help out young people in this respect? Is it a reflection of, I guess, your time with the Duke of Edinburgh and how that reminds you of how you stepped into that world? And why do you think it's important to show people that kind of life?
So why do I like taking young people out on a venture? So when I was 18, I went to Africa and I was on an expedition. Duke of Edinburgh had been massively impactful on me, but this expedition in Africa literally changed my life. I had really low self-esteem, and I was a teenage girl, so there's all the teenage angst that goes with that. But I'd also had difficulties in my later childhood, and I had really low self-esteem. And Duke of Edinburgh gave me this view on hope, and it built me right back up, or it started me on the road to be able to build some sort of hope and confidence in my future. And then the expedition in Africa absolutely took that to another level. And that sort of transformation I've seen on youth development expeditions time and time again. So sort of I've taken, a couple of dozen youth development expeditions to different countries around the world. that sort of 16 to 22, 24-year-olds. And it is at that time of your life, particularly, you can just change somebody's whole route through life. It's amazing. And so I love taking young people like that, because you can help them see that they can do more than they thought. That's one of the key things of adventure. You can do more than you think. And it's only by stepping outside your comfort zone and trying something like that you can find that out. And there was, I hadn't realized how impactful it was until, I think it's a long time ago now, but it was a big moment for me. I was the youngest chief leader for the British Exploring Society about 19 years ago. Well, no, 20 years ago now. I was 26 at the time. And we'd all come back from the expedition. We stood outside the Royal Geographical Society in the rain. And we were all lined up to go in and present our expedition, sort of 6 months later. And then I had about 120 people out in the Amazon on this expedition, because I had, not all in one group, but I had different groups around the jungle doing different work and stuff. And so we were all meeting up, and this woman came up to me and she said, "What have you done to my daughter?" And I just thought, oh no, is this the girl that got bitten by a bat or one of the parasites? You know, there was like, you always get some people get parasites in jungles. You can't completely stop it. I was like, oh no. I wasn't prepared for like being in trouble. And then she just gave me this massive hug.
Wow.
And she said, "Alice, my daughter Alice is changed. She's just, her life is transformed. She's completely changed." And then it made sense. And Alice had been a girl on the trip, on the expedition, who had a history of self-harm and other issues, sort of depression, anxiety. And she really did struggle, but I saw her transforming in front of my eyes on the expedition. She became much more confident in herself. She became more confident in her relationships with others, and she was able to build friendships. And the thing is, for me, I'd seen this happen. So it happened for me and it happened for other people, but I didn't realize that it had this long lasting effect until that moment. And so 6 months later, her mum was telling me how her grades were up, how she had new friends at school, how she was helping out at home, and her whole behavior had changed. And that made me, for the first time, just think, adventure is this powerful, impactful thing. And there is like this, it's amazing. Why don't we understand it? Why aren't we talking about it more? And it made me think, no, there's definitely something here. There's like a secret. There's something amazing and special about adventure, and we need, it's essential to our well-being. We all need it.
Yeah, I agree completely. With that in mind, do you have any advice for, say, any parents watching who have, say, young teenage children, that they kind of feel they would like to do this, but they would have no idea how to get them into sort of this lifestyle? Would you have any advice for them?
Yeah, well, gosh, there's so much to say. I think it so depends on the person and the situation, doesn't it? I think the main thing is to start looking around, to start doing something. There's all sorts of organisations, especially for teenagers. So there's all sorts of options there, from amazing charities like the Youth Adventure Trust, the Wave Project, Outward Bound. But those are usually for children or teenagers who are having issues or have issues at school or having other issues. But for kids who are falling between those gaps, or just kids who just, you want them to be the best that they can be and have the best life possible. Think about taking them out on some adventures, or if you absolutely, if you can't bear it, then find a friend who will do something. Yeah. And you don't I think the main thing is do something, start small, because it's very intimidating. Those first steps are the most intimidating steps, but it always gets easier. There's this wonderful feedback. The more adventure you do, you get this feedback of positive emotions and fun and joy and confidence building, so you can do more and more. But the first steps are the hardest, and understand that those are the hardest, so that you don't go too big and never start, or B, that you can pat yourself on the back and go, this is going to get easier. But go geocaching, go wild swimming, book a kayaking course, a first kayaking lesson, camp in your garden, or go camp somewhere wilder. climbing. There's climbing in pretty much every town and city has a climbing wall now. You can you can try climbing or bouldering. There's actually more around, or parkour. Parkour's a real favorite of mine. It is so, there's such an amazing evidence about parkour, and especially with young people, because it's so much about freedom and about expressing yourself in a free way. And let's face it, we don't let our teenagers do that. I think because there's so much pressure on them to compare and contrast on social media or to do well at school. And it's all this kind of do this. Parkour's a real freedom of expression. I think it's a great adventure. There's loads of great things. There's even more ideas in the book as well. But
yeah, well, we'll get to that shortly. I've been doing this. I've got an event next year called the Frontline 100K Walk-In. It's in
excellent.
Yeah, so it's in France and Belgium next year. So I started walking nice and early, ready for it, and I was trying to find podcasts that I could listen to, and I had Bear Grylls' survival stories in my phone already, and I listened to one of them, and it was about a woman who was hiking in somewhere snowy. I can't remember what it was, and she fell through a snow bridge, and basically got trapped and just about made it out with the help of someone else. And after I finished that walk and I popped online to kind of check out some information about yourself for the show, I saw a picture of you snuggled up in a kind of an icy, snowy cave, and I thought that is kind of, after listening to that, very scary. And my question is that you don't strike me as someone, perhaps with all the things you've done, maybe has a fearful side, but is there something you're quite timid of or quite afraid of in the adventure world?
Yeah. Oh, it is not the lack of fear at all. And it's not bravery either. It started off, I think, when I was a teenager, there was a stupidity and a lack of knowledge. So it wasn't fearful. It wasn't fearlessness. It was literally being dumb, young and dumb, and doing stuff that, frankly, now I think, oh, I'm so lucky I got through that. And it's not the way I suggest people do it. It was just, that's the way it happened to go. I don't see, over the years and doing more and more adventure, you actually learn, or I have learned, that fear is not something to be avoided. Fear is information, and it might be information that helps you prepare and focus and get to it, or it might be information that makes you back away and actually stop doing something. But usually I see it as information rather than something to avoid or something to stop you. It's like, no, I'm much more interested in doing stuff and finding ways to do stuff sensibly than finding reasons not to do things. And I think adventure teaches you that. It's like, not to be reckless at all and not to be some kind of crazy risk taker, because actually the more adventures you do, the better you are equipped at assessing risk. And as a professional adventurer and someone especially who because I take other people on adventures, I am so careful to mitigate risk. It's all I think about when I'm taking especially other people out on something. It's all I'm thinking about. So I think this idea that adventurers are kind of all about death defying and being fearless and kind of throwing themselves off cliffs and base jumping, it's actually, people don't do it for that reason. All the research shows, as well as just my experience, shows that people are looking to live and feel alive. And that's what we're all searching for, feeling alive, not trying to dice with death, which is silly. So as far as fear goes, I see it probably differently to maybe when I was 16 or whatever. I've got a bit more experience now, so I feel that I can assess whether I can do something and if it's risky for me or not. Since I've had a child, I have to admit my risk profile has changed. I am more fearful now. My little one's 3, and I'm much more fearful now than I was, because I cannot take any risks at all that I might not be there for him over the next sort of 15 years. Of course, once he's 18, my risk profile might go back up again. Not to reckless, but it would be different. So sorry, I've rambled off and
Not
was
at all.
going to ask your question. Yes, am I scared of anything? Yes, I'm scared of millions of things. I'm scared of going on stage and doing public speaking. I'm scared of having a child and being a mum. It's terrifying. It's the most terrifying thing I've ever done. But it doesn't stop me. The only thing in the adventure world that I still feel a bit squeaky about is tight spaces in caves and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I do it because I enjoy that feeling that I'm pushing myself occasionally, and I can keep myself focused and under control. I know that I'm not a panicker, touch wood, because I've been in some interesting situations in caves, but I would say that that's where I'm least comfortable and would never take it up as a full-time, like, this is my passion project, because I'd rather be in a jungle, up a mountain, underwater, anywhere, but probably in a cave. But still, actually, no, I'd rather be anywhere but in an office, probably. Too much. I'm in front of my computer far too much, and that probably is doing me much more harm than anything else.
That's amazing. But yeah, Joanne Paulson also agrees. Cave, no. When it comes to your public speaking, of course, you do public speaking on different events, and I was going to ask you a little bit about Britain's National Day of Adventure, which is something massively part of what you've created. Have you had any heckles or anything like that once you're doing speaking, or is everyone really engaged in that kind of concept?
Ooh. Do you know what? I had a heckle recently, sort of a heckle. So I was talking about my book at Appledore Book Festival, and how adventure is really important there's about 12 reasons that adventure is really, really good for us, for our well-being, physical and mental. So I just pick on a couple and do a talk, because you can't talk about the whole lot. And one of them is about stepping outside your comfort zone, and how it's important to step outside your comfort zone, because that's how you grow. And if you choose challenge, if you choose to push yourself, you find out what you can do. You make mistakes, but learn lessons much more from that than from caution. And I kind of go into that in quite a lot of depth and with some nice stories. And he said, wait a minute, we've all come out of COVID. The last thing we need is any more F word challenge. Thank you very much. And I was like, but the difference, it's a good question though, because the difference is not about trauma, and it's not about unwelcome challenge that is forced upon you. It's about, and actually people who've been through trauma, like myself in my teenage years, and actually do so well choosing challenge and choosing to take themselves out of their comfort zone in an adventurous way, in a very natural, it's the most natural challenge in the world. Walking across something, or walking up a mountain, or swimming across, kayaking through something. It's the most natural way for us as people to challenge ourselves. So the way that our brains work, I don't know how much you want me to go into detail on this, but the way that our brains work, it's much more playful essentially, and our brains are kind of and our bodies are put through this stress, but it's very short-lived stress followed by lots of good feelings of like achievement and like relief and joy. And it's very different to trauma and to this constant stress that we've had through the last 18 months of fear for ourselves or for our older people in our generation, older generations in our family, or just general low level fear and stress is really bad for us. Whereas the stress of adventure is actually a totally different type of stress and really, really good for us and builds us up, whereas the other one drags us down. And so it was a good heckle, because it made me think, I didn't really explain that. But you can't explain everything, can you?
I wonder what he thought he was there for, though. If he didn't know that is kind of what was the theme of it all. Okay, so let's get on to round 2 of the show, which is where we'll talk about the book. You kind of touched on it there, and we'll get to let everybody know what all that is all about. Okay then, Belinda, let everybody know, what is your book about?
So, Adventure Revolution is the first book to explain why adventure is so essential to our well-being. It's goodness. I've said so much bad already. Not I completely was bad writer. It is. It's based on 26 years of my taking people on adventures and seeing adventure change people and transform their lives, not just on the adventure, but afterwards. Then that was followed by about 10 years of me going, but why? Yeah, why? And why isn't anyone talking about this? And why isn't there research and a book about this? And eventually I ended up writing the book because I was so interested to find out why that I researched it and picked up data and read all sorts of research papers from all these different disciplines and pulled it all together and was starting to make my own theories and kind of discoveries. And then I thought, well, I better write a book about it, because actually we need to rebrand adventure. We need to, and it's great to encourage people to put adventure into their own lives and work out and show them how easy it is, because it is easier than you think to add adventure. It's not just for guys with big beards, white guys with beards used to be the adventurer of but it's not elite like that. I don't think I'm not sure if it entirely ever was, but it definitely isn't just for people like that. Everyone can do it. And just to understand how beneficial it is, and especially now with what we've all, with the mental health problem that we're facing. So it's not just about healing and how it can help us if we're struggling, but it's about, even if we're doing well in life, it's about how we can raise our game even further and just have the best possible lives.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on something amazing there. The back of lockdown has caused a massive issue in our young people's mental health today. And taking that step now, where it's really important now to get people back into the world and get them focused on other things, I think is crucially important. And your book obviously touches on mental health issues and how to combat sort of self-belief and anxiety and those sort of things as well, which I think is fundamentally important now. How did this writing process evolve then? Because obviously you had these great ideas and you did the research, of course, which is always a great thing to do in that respect, and realize that there's a gap there to plug. Did you have much experience with your, say, personal career which would aid you towards writing this, or was it completely a new process for you?
I actually had, I realised, not well, actually there's a few places. So I went to Oxford and did biology. That doesn't make me a psychologist, but it does make me, it gave me an ology. So I'm a scientist, sort of lapsed, kind of ex-scientist, whatever. So I had an understanding of, and actually I go into a bit of evolutionary psychology in the book. So I was very glad to be able to send my draft book to my old tutor who taught me evolutionary stuff. I was like, oh, there's even a bit of evolution in there. Hooray. My degree wasn't a complete waste of time. No, it wasn't a waste of time. So I had learnt how to read scientific papers and assess them and think in that way. So thankfully I had that degree and that start. When I was working in TV and working with Bear Grylls, Chris Ryan, and Ray, I can't even think, Attenborough, and wonderful people like that. Yes, I can't remember who I'd said then. Yeah, Ray Mears, Bear Grylls, Chris Ryan, Attenborough, all these awesome people. I was setting all these expeditions up for them, and I sort of went in as a sort of logistical health and safety almost person, getting crews in and out of remote areas. But actually, over the years, I love learning, and the BBC put me on a directing course, and eventually I actually ended up directing some films as well, and therefore writing scripts. And so they put me on a script writing course. And so that writing that I learned from TV, that idea of telling a story, i.e. start, middle and end, and what a story is, not what you think a story is, but what a story actually is, and about choosing when you tell people certain bits of information. And there was just bits in there from way back that I was trying to mine out, bits of information that I was like, oh, I kind of, yeah. So actually I had more training than I'd realised, and had more experience than I realised when I started to try to pull it all together.
That is quite incredible. So it almost was in the pipeline, it was kind of fated that you would end up in this kind of position, writing in that way, using all that kind of life experience and knowledge that you had then. So did you kind of plot things from all the experience you had and try to put that together as a structured story, or was it kind of just go a free-flowing draft the first time and just kind of throw everything in there, or was it kind of like a big discussion about kind of what was going to be involved?
Oh, a bit of everything. It was definitely at times it was like a vomiting onto the page. It's just like ideas, and I just I'm very I think because I used to make films and I think like that. I think visually. So writing and making films, although it's all telling stories, it is different. And so that was a big hurdle. But I think the biggest hurdle for me was that I had all this information, all these stories. I started reading scientific papers, but then I also was interviewing people that I'd been on expedition with, people that I knew their life had transformed through expeditions that I'd been on with them. Oh, are we still here? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. I'm going to keep talking and you can tell me if it's not working. That's odd. I've completely lost you, it feels
I'm
like.
back, I think.
Anyway.
Yeah, carry on. I think that was my internet.
Oh, good. It's not me for a change. Excellent. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, yes.
About how other people you interviewed on their expeditions, yeah.
So I had all this scientific stuff floating around in my head, and I don't feel like a scientist, so I was all very lapsed. So I was like, out of my depth a bit. Then I was, although it's so interesting learning about all these different areas, positive psychology and everything else. But then I was interviewing people that I'd been on expedition with all over the world, over like 15, 16 years worth, a sort of, span. I mean, it was amazing reason to talk to them and to get back in touch with them. But it was also even more amazing to find out how, 5, 10, 15 years later, how that expedition or that adventure, how they saw it now. And the way that it was so much like a watershed for so many people. It was wonderful. But I did have this massive information. So the writing process for me was just being utterly just gridlocked at one point, just going, I don't know where to go now. I've got all this research, but I don't know what to do. And that was really hard. I went down all sorts of avenues trying to, I suppose it's a block or something, because I had no skills as to what I'm supposed to do or what does a book look like. Yeah. And so what I did, and I'm really glad that I did, is I went on Readsy and I found a book editor type book doctor. And I spent a few days, this guy in America who had a really good profile. And I thought, okay, let's try this. And I sent him some of the information and sort of my rough outline. I'm like, but I just feel completely stuck. I don't literally know what to do next because I just feel stuck. And we just discussed it. And he clarified a lot of the things that I was trying to do anyway, but I felt much more confident about it. And he also gave me some really good tricks and some techniques, like, one paragraph, each paragraph should only be trying to say one thing. And he said, oh yeah, and specifically for the overall structure of the book, I don't know why I didn't think of this myself, but he said, go and look at other books and see how they're structured. I was like, oh, that's really obvious. But I hadn't actually thought of that. So I thought, I then went to look at lots of other books. I mean, just on my shelf. I didn't have to buy any. And just thought, oh yeah, there was sort of non-fiction. I thought, okay, how are they structured? And it really helped me to then think, yeah, I'm actually mostly in the right direction, but I tweaked this, moved that. And then I could actually start writing. Once I had an outline, I felt like I could start writing because I didn't know where to put my thought. Everything else had just been regurgitated onto a page. I didn't know how to make sense of it, I suppose, until then.
Yeah, fantastic. So you really leaned on someone who had that information, that helps you out in that sense. What kind of advice would you give someone who's going to step into the same world where they might be going to a non-fiction kind of world where they're using their life experience to create a story and a message. What experience or tips could you give them if they're going to go down that route?
God, can I give out tips when I've only written one book? I don't know.
Of course you can. Every single author that comes on this show has a value somewhere that someone who listens hasn't heard before, and it always counts.
No, absolutely. And I think it's just very much my personal experience I can talk about.
Yeah.
For me, I went on a Guardian writing course, and I went on another writing course. And I think a few takeaway things that I now, if I ever write anything else, which I am starting to dabble in, there's a few things. So there's that idea, as I said already, about each paragraph saying just one thing. That really helps the flow of, once you're into a chapter or a story, it really helps the flow. I don't know if this is really telling Granny how to suck eggs or whatever, but it really changed. It really helped where I could see something was wrong, but I couldn't work out what was wrong. And I was like, oh, of course, because I'm trying to say too much all at once, which is how I speak sometimes. It's like, got all these ideas flooding out and I just try and throw them out. It's like, stop.
So basically simplify what you're trying to create so it's a bit more understandable and smoother in the script.
Yeah, so when you're breaking down when you're trying to tell a story, say, within a bigger, one story within your book, each paragraph should only be trying to make one point, one step along that progress. And also that you can do clever things like, it's a very filmic technique. I love to start with a big action moment or a big flashback kind of, the start of the book is a wheelchair halfway up a volcano in Nicaragua, this empty wheelchair left on the side of a volcano. It's very filmic. I think that's probably why I think like that and I write like that. But it's also,
is that a real thing?
What do you mean?
Is it real?
That's how the book starts. Yeah.
So, is the wheelchair on the volcano a real thing?
Yeah. So I went up this volcano with this basketball icon, Ade Adepitan, who's now a massive famous TV star, and a one-legged man and a bigger crew actually of people with disabilities. But my outlook on life was changed by going up that volcano with Ade and Carl. And anyway, halfway up the mountain, halfway up the volcano, we had to leave the wheelchair, and Ade had to go up without the wheelchair. He literally dragged himself to the top. Wow. I'm ruining the book now, ruining the first chapter. Anyway, but I started not at the start with, this is the background, these are the people, I started with a flashback or whatever the right conceit would be called. I don't know the right wording, because that's what I've done on TV shows so often, is you start with a bang. You start with Bear jumping out the helicopter. You don't start with him on the ground or planning or, but then you start with that to catch people's attention, and then you go back to the start and you kind of, it's very straightforward narrative after that. Well, it depends how you can do things. Depends how you want to do things.
That is fantastic advice for someone who's just written one book. I think that's great. Really is great advice.
I don't know, and there's lots of other things. Inner monologue is the other main thing I've learned through writing the book, which I think I knew before from TV and filmmaking. But inner monologue is a massive part of writing, i.e., I'm going to get this wrong now, but where things come alive is when you realize how people are thinking, your characters are thinking differently, whether it be fiction or non-fiction, and really getting into people's heads and if you're interviewing in a non-fiction book, interviewing people how they're feeling and how they were feeling before or after an event, and that inner monologue is where you bring out the detail and the magic sometimes in those transformations or character development sort of thing.
Fantastic. Just before we move on to the third part of the show, then, where we get questions from the audience, and guys, start thinking about those if you want to send them in. I was going to ask you about if you were going to write something else, or you're going to look down a different route of writing, but you mentioned that you were dabbling in there. So you can't say that and leave it there. What might be coming in the world of writing for Belinda next?
I have to be honest, I can't imagine I'll ever write a book that's, to me, more important than Adventure Revolution, because it's kind of the culmination of my career. But, and I've always said no to writing a straightforward memoir, because I was like, well, I'm too busy doing fun stuff. I don't really want to sit down that long. And I didn't see the point of it almost. Whereas this book is my message. This Adventure Revolution is my message to the world. It's like, you don't have to listen to it, but this is all the experience I've got. And I mean, everyone who's lived 46 years has something to say. And and I've taken the time to write it down. But I'm dabbling in the idea of a memoir, or I'm doing an adventure with my family, and I'm I'm writing stuff. I'm making notes and keeping diaries, and writing this book has made me realize how much I need to, how fantastic adventure is for forming good relationships and bonds. And as a team, there's no better team than a family. And as a family, we are doing okay as new parents, but going on a big adventure together. We're doing a couple of big adventures, and I believe that will help us bond and become even better in our roles as mum, dad, child. And that's what I'm exploring in thinking of exploring. But it might never be
Fantastic.
A book. It might just be for my son or something, or for me.
But that sounds fantastic. Brilliant. So let's get into round 3 of the show, where we get questions in from the audience right now. Guys, if you have any questions for Belinda, for myself, or the both of us, send them in now, and we will get into that. So as those questions start coming in, I've got a couple myself to ask that are slightly off topic before we ask the questions there. What is the last book you read, or the last film you watched?
Oh, at the moment I'm reading Raina Wynn's book, The Wild Silence. So I'm halfway through, if that counts.
I've got
several books half read.
I wonder why.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, after The Salt Path, I thought, wow, I was a bit reticent about reading another book, because I thought, how on earth is she going to top that? It's such a good book. And then actually, I'm halfway through, and I've been crying and laughing and feeling alive and inspired and everything already. So it's great, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, what would you sing at a karaoke night?
Ooh, Adele. Or possibly Bon Jovi. Or I'm proper cheese. I love a bit of cheese. Although Adele's not cheesy, actually. 80s power ballads. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they are classic
They're back
karaoke
in now,
songs.
aren't they? It's cool again.
Cool. Okay, so let's get some questions from the guys in the audience. And the first one is from Linda. Thank you for your question. She says, are there any other adventures that you are still on your bucket list?
Millions. I don't know. I'd like to swim the Channel at some point, but that is gnarly. I mean, that is seriously hard. Much respect for people who do that.
Yeah.
There's several. There's so many things. At the moment, I'm mostly, although I've got lots on my bucket list, the thing that's really in front of me at the moment is, what can I do now that I'm a mum? Like, what big adventures, especially when, I mean, obviously, when COVID allows us to travel a bit more as well. So there's this big adventure I'm doing in Britain, but also, what adventures can I do with my son and my partner Jim as our little one grows up? And so it's a whole, I'm completely looking at adventure in a different way, because it's like, what risks are accept. You know, when can we go to somewhere tropical with a child? You know, he's 3 at the moment, so we're not going to go anywhere. I've seen people with dengue fever, and I've had malaria twice. So, I suppose my brain is full of ideas of what can we do as a family. What can we do as a family? So yeah, looking for ideas at the moment. Canada is next. My partner Jim is a painter. He paints birds. We're going to go to Canada and look for some finches.
Okay.
There's some random finches that he wants to find in Canada. So we'll have a little explore around, wild camp, and go off into the forest looking for these finches. Yes.
Yeah. Stay away from those, definitely. Yeah, you mentioned the swimming across the channel. That is incredible, but I don't know if you've read it. I've kind of half read Ross Edgley's book about him swimming around Britain. There are some horrific parts of that story, and I'm only halfway into it, so I take my hat off to anyone who attempts anything like that. It is incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, Joanna Paulson, thank you for your question. Again, guys, any more questions, send them in. Would you adventure into space, perhaps on a billionaire's craft, or is that going too far?
Oh, what to answer to that? To be perfectly honest, if I was offered anything awesome like that, I would probably, it'd be very hard to say no, wouldn't it? I'd love to go into space. Do I think it's where we should be spending our time and effort right now? Probably not. So yeah, I would be conflicted.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, being offered a space into space. I mean,
a space in
crikey.
space.
A space in space. I mean, say no.
I read something the other day, and it was still fascinating how unexplored the kind of ocean floor is and all these things compared to space. And then people are paying a lot of money to go in space, which is basically a little ride around somewhere you can't go and explore out, really. And then you come back, but no one's really spending too much time looking down. So what do you think about that? Do you think we should be spending a lot more time figuring out what's below us?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's huge amounts of discovery, deep ocean, and also in caves. I mean, caves are the other completely unexplored part. But that's in terms of pure exploration, in terms of trying to discover scientific or other things. I'm much more interested now in exploring for our own, exploring so that we can become better people. And just because someone's been to somewhere on a map doesn't mean that you can't go there and experience something that will change your life, make you a better person, and therefore make you a better citizen of this planet. So I'm my energy and focus is just different. It's not there. But if someone actually said, "Do you fancy going to space?" I'll pay for it. Of course, it's a yes. Sorry.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
I'm trying to keep my air miles down.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Linda sent another question in. Thank you, and it's a good one. If you had to hunker down in a snow cave with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, that is a good question. Oh goodness.
It's a tough one.
John, because I've worked with so many celebrities, I don't worship celebrities because people are people.
Yeah.
And actually, some of the most inspiring, wonderful people that I've ever met are not, well, most of them are not famous. So I don't sort of hero worship celebrities at all. So I can't. Of the most awesome people that I've come across is some. David Attenborough would probably be of a celebrity that I actually know because I've actually met him and worked with him a little bit. I haven't worked with him loads. He is actually a one-of-a-kind gem.
Yeah.
But also really funny. I love comics. So if I was going to hunker in a snow cave, it would probably be with someone funny. There's nothing better than getting someone funny on any expedition or adventure. Bill Bailey is brilliant. I loved Bill Bailey before he was famous, as it were, before he was really famous, because he's so clever and so silly and off there.
Definitely.
You have to be very clever to do that. So someone funny like that.
No, I agree with you completely there. And I think I would naturally go towards Billy Connolly because I think his storytelling is absolutely sensational. and it would be very fun. And you'd need the laughter to stay warm, I guess, wouldn't you?
We just need laughter when you're going, because adventures often involve some type 2 fun, which is type 1 fun is fun at the time and fun afterwards. Type 2 fun is not fun at the time, but is fun afterwards. And you need people with a sense of humour when you're doing tough stuff like that. So yeah, Billy Connolly, God, good choice. I should have said him as well. Awesome.
Definitely. But David Attenborough, though, come on. I mean, who hasn't grown up knowing who
I'll get
David
all three
Attenborough
of
is?
them. I'll get all three of them in a snow cave. That'd be awesome.
That would be a hell of a conversation. Before we finish up then, for example, we did Harrogate Book Fest this year. Went to vlog it, crazy, silly vlog, showing the experience of it all. If I was to vlog an adventure day somewhere in the UK, for example, and film myself being stupid doing it, what could I look into? Is there anywhere that I could go and do that?
What do you mean an adventure? So
like
for the day, or
something? I mean, if someone wanted to go and do something for a day, is there someone they can go and look into that? Is it like a website they can find? Do you know?
Gosh, there's loads. I don't know where to begin.
It's fine. That was a bit of an awkward question, I guess.
Why do you know? Do you mean like you could join your local canoe club or kayak club, or go to a company and sign up for bushcraft, or go to a climbing wall and do some climbing? And
okay. I mean, so just check out all the local things around and see what takes your fancy.
Yeah, but if you're just for a day of adventure, there's actually loads. It's just you have to think outside the box. I mean, there's loads of ideas in the back of my book, but and I've thrown a few out. But
so the tip of the day would be go and find some type 2 fun.
Well, I think it's a balance between getting the right amount of type 1 and type 2 fun until you get, and that you need enough. You need the right balance of the two. Life is always about balance.
Definitely. Okay then, so just before we do wrap up, where can people find your book and buy your book from?
So you can find Adventure Revolution in most of the sort of bookshops, from Waterstones and Amazon, Waterstones and Stanford's and W.H. Smith. But you can also find it online, in all the usual online booksellers. You can get it in Kindle, in a paperback, and also audiobook.
Definitely, guys, please do go and check that out. It is incredible. I will be getting just off that. You read the first part of the chapter about the wheelchair on the volcano. All of that, I'm bought. I'm sold. I'm in. I'm going to get that definitely. So thank you so much for joining me on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. I'm sure the guys in the audience have had a fantastic time listening to your stories as well. All of the best for the book, and I hope we do see another one down the line. You can come back and chat to us about that as well. But for me, it's goodbye and thank you.
No, thank you so much for having me on. It's been really interesting. Ask me questions I hadn't thought about, so that's always nice.
Thank you very much, Belinda. And guys, I will see you on Friday for the Brooklyn Book Festival. Crazy time. Thank you all. Bye, guys. Cheers.